Hello, everyone. Juxtaposition here. Hope everyone's having a joyous day and drinking the nectar of the gods from their Juxtaposition 1 coffee mug. I know I am. If you don't have a coffee mug, do check the links below to order one from my P.O. box. All right. Today's video will be entitled The Bane of Our Society, military economy, and All right, the bane of our society, military economy. They go hand in hand, or handcuffed wrist to handcuffed wrist. You see behind me here is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about techno enslavement, digital domination under a military NATO global governance from Geneva global governance policy called zero trust. And zero trust means I don't trust you. That's what it means. It's not about you questioning authority. Authority is in charge. They're the boss. Geneva is the boss of bosses. Switzerland, Swiss bank authority is the boss of bosses. The military is bossed by the banks. Bankers boss NATO, not the other way around. You see, everything in our society that's grandiose, a cathedral, a bridge, a Hoover Dam, or the Golden Gate Bridge, right? The Brooklyn Bridge, right? Statue of Liberty, the obelisk that stands at the Reflection Pond in Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument, the Transamerica Pyramid, the CN Tower in Toronto, Canada, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, right? The obelisk that stands in the center of St. Peter's Square in the Vatican City State. Those all require financing, economic money exchange. They're not going to be built for free. You cannot build the pyramids in Egypt with free donuts. It takes more than donuts to build pyramids. You've got to pay, and people have to assemble a little village, a work labor camp, what have you, a FEMA camp. You can only do so much with prison labor, right? You want people to work hard for the money, right? You want them to work hard for the money, or sometimes work hard for no money, right? You have to provide incentives, economic incentives. Thus, we create this pseudoscience called economics. Economics is an illusion where people who are slaves presume that they have status within a hierarchy based upon their salary, their status that comes with their job, and the type of home that they get to live in. It's an illusion. It's a metaverse. It's a matrix of mendacity. But it does work, you know, as one banker told me once, hey, it works until it doesn't work anymore. And of course, it doesn't work when people lose confidence in the system of psychological mysticism. You call it black magic. You call it pulling a bunny rabbit out of a hat. In other words, once you understand the mechanics of the trick, the magic is gone. And once you understand the magic around the deception of a economic system that's based on zero trust military funded by Swiss bank authority, then you start to let go. You no longer trust in doctors. You don't trust in politicians. You don't trust your governor. You don't trust your city mayor. You don't trust your city council. You don't trust your county board of supervisors. You don't trust your district attorney. You don't trust your courthouse. You don't trust your judges, the judges that you have at your courthouses, plural. You don't trust your courts. You don't find any justice there. You don't trust your sheriff. You don't trust your police. You don't trust Trump. You don't trust Joe Biden. You don't trust Kamala Harris. You don't trust Bernie Sanders or Ron DeSantis or Gavin Newsom, for God's sakes. You don't trust Jesse the Steroid Ventura, sergeant of arms for a motorcycle club in 1973 called the Mongols. Jesse Ventura, who was never ever deployed to Vietnam, never saw combat in his life, runs around bossing people around about jabs and biocyber interfaces that Jesse Ventura is too stupid to know anything about. Arnold Screw Your Freedom Schwarzenegger, who wouldn't even be on television were it not for anabolic steroids, peptide hormones, and amphetamines, there would be no gubernator, no such thing. Can you believe this clown marches in from Austria, takes a bunch of drugs, pumps weight down there at Venice Beach, which is a military intelligence zone, if you didn't know, and then wins a bikini contest called Mr. Olympia, and they turn him into a governor of California. Right. Arnold Screw Your Freedom Schwarzenegger lives in Pacific Palisades, where we had a massive fire that the media presented through Megyn Kelly and James Woods that the entire Los Angeles was going to burn to the ground. But it turned out Megyn Kelly lied. She lied like a rug. James Woods' house didn't burn down, and neither did Arnold Schwarzenegger's, and neither did Randy Newman. I love LA. Short people got no reason to live, and it's money that matters. Randy Newman, Randall Newman, his home didn't burn down. He lived right around the corner from where Ronald Reagan used to live in Pacific Palisades, and Ronald Reagan's home didn't burn down either. All right. So what I'm telling you is you live in zero trust with security clearances and privileges that come with your rank, which follows along the obelisk. Like, where do you stand in the obelisk? Well, here's the obelisk that sits. It sits or stands how you like it in the center of Geneva, Switzerland. There's an obelisk in the center of Geneva, Switzerland, just walking distance from Lake Geneva. Underneath, which is CERN, a big donut. It's like a 7-mile circle underneath the 7-mile circle under a tunnel beneath the Lake Geneva, where they have a linear accelerator proton beam separation of particulates in a underground layer near this obelisk. All right, don't spit your chewing gum out. You'll be getting a citation if you do that in Geneva. They do have a litter police force that is on duty from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. They have a litter police force in Geneva. I am not joking around. They really do. All right. Can you be governor of Florida and be a truth teller? No, you cannot. Ron DeSantis, who went to Yale University, then Harvard Law, then the NATO Navy Judge Advocate School, where he learned about maritime tribunal law. He knows nothing about the Constitution, doesn't know anything about constitutional law. As far as I know, he's never actually tried a case before in a constitutional law court. But that's okay. We don't have any constitutional law court. He has participated as a member of the Biscuit team, which is a behavioral science correctional team in Fallujah, Iraq, and Guantanamo Bay, where he supervised the torturing, enhanced interrogation of prisoners who he presumably counseled on their Geneva Convention rights as a detainee in a cage in Cuba or in Iraq, in Fallujah. Yes, Ron DeSantis supervises, enemas, force feedings and enemas. This is Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, who pretended to be opposed to the COVID vaccine whilst masking up and pimping and promoting PCR DNA collections procedures, which have nothing to do with verifying if you have the flu or a deadly virus. Thank you, Ron DeSantis. You are just a pimp for COVID. You're a COVID occultist, and you're wearing a mask just like a Superior Court judge or a Supreme Court judge would do, because every single judge in America is a pimp for COVID. Every elite banker, every corporate executive vice president, CEO is a pimp for COVID. In other words, they lie in order to get a paycheck. Ron DeSantis's political career and his military career with the Navy is based upon lying. If he ever told the truth, he would be kicked to the curb. If you don't believe me, you could talk to Jimmy Jones. Problem is, somebody shot Jim Jones in the back of the head while he sat in a rocking chair in the jungles of Guyana, in British Guyana, under British intelligence supervision on Union Carbide property. That's right. Union Carbide is a military contractor. Don't look at me. Look at Marion Jones. She's cloaked in a 13-striped Swiss colonial flag, all right, with the pentagram stars shining brightly. Marion Jones looked doped to the gills with blood doping, steroids, insulin growth factor, growth hormones, glucose, amphetamines, cocaine, heroin, morphine, you name it, she's on it. And she lied like a rug, right? Because Nike sponsored her and told her to lie like a rug. So Phil Knight, Nike Corporation, congratulations. You cheated another Olympics. Lance Armstrong, his entire career is based on a lie and a boatload of drugs. He's never told the truth. Even when he went on Oprah and he admitted taking human growth hormones, EPO, testosterone, and cortisone, even when he admitted that, he didn't mention that he takes female fertility hormones like Bruce Jenner does. He didn't mention that he takes Norwegian cow blood, right? Norwegian calves? Yeah, he takes blood from Norwegian calves. Lance Armstrong does. Yeah, he did. Came out at the civil trial. Nobody paid attention and the media didn't really promote it. This is the world that we live in. We live in a NATO forces armed guard world where we present these peacock pretty Nobel laureates. This is a Nobel laureate. Her name is Jennifer Ann Doudna, and she received a Nobel Prize for CRISPR therapeutics, which is a Frankenstein monster DNA injury program, NATO weapon program called Cas9. She calls it gene splicing, gene editing. Juxtaposition calls it Frankenstein monstering humans against their will, without informed consent. In fact, without any consent, no consent whatsoever. The COVID jab was rolled out without any consent whatsoever, and so too is Cas9 CRISPR therapeutics, expressed through Caribou Biosciences and Innovative Genomics Institute and the Doudna Labs, all in the city of Berkeley, California, and with offices in Mission Bay, San Francisco, Boston, Massachusetts, London, England, and of course, Zug, Switzerland, which is the home office, is in Switzerland near Liechtenstein. Thank you, Jennifer Doudna. Your career is based on lying. People who fly the SR-71, or in this case, the SR-72, their careers are based on lying. I personally knew a pilot that flew the SR-71 and set 7 overflight records. And that plane sits in the Smithsonian Air Museum in Maryland. And he pledges allegiance to a 13-stripe flag, just like Marion Jones does. So you have the pilots of these planes are in the cult with Marion Jones, who's also in the cult with Lance Armstrong, all operating within a zero trust military code of conduct. A code of conduct. That's how we roll. It's all about the code of conduct. All right. And that's obedience and a code of omerta secrecy, where we don't tell the mechanics of the trick. All right. The United States has a population of approximately 341 million people. 341,800. 341,800,000 people live in the United States as of the end of 2025. In Western Europe, which would include Germany, France, the Netherlands, Denmark, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, you're looking at a population of approximately 200 million people. 200 million people. So the United States has about 70% more population than does Western Europe. Again, Western Europe is about 200 million people, and the United States about 342 million people. Of our 342 million Americans, 2.6 million are in the military uniformed armed forces. That includes 500,000 civilian military employees of the Department of Defense, DoD. So 2.6 million, and 2.6 million dedicated people is approximately 0.8% of the total population of the United States. It sounds like a low number. I'm going to round it up to 1% of our population is in the armed forces, military forces. That includes the National Guard and reservists and active duty personnel, as well as civilian employees. 2.6 million. Sounds like a low number, doesn't it? It's not. It's a preposterously high number. We're not at war. We're not at war. Why do you need 2.6 million people getting ready to kill somebody with a loaded weapon? All right. It goes much worse than that because, for every single member of the military armed forces, there's at least a minimum of 10 civilians who work for military contract firms, corporations that subcontract work to the armed forces for NATO contractors. The easy ones are names that you'll recognize: Lockheed Martin, Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, the same company. Boeing and McDonnell Douglas merged. They call it McBoeing. Hughes Space and Communications, Pratt and Whitney, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon Missile Guidance, Bell Nokia Labs, General Dynamics, the oil industry, like Chevron, Exxon, British Petroleum, Getty Oil, like Ivy Love Getty, Gordon Getty Oil. Those are easy to know, but Big Pharma's in the game too, with Pfizer and Merck and Novartis, headquartered in Basel, Switzerland, Novartis. And they own Sandoz Labs, and they own Chiron and Bayer. They're in the game too because Big Pharma operates with the military. They give amphetamines and drugs to create super soldiers for the military, right? And they give mandatory COVID vaccinations to the 2.6 million people who work for the military. There's 2.6 million people who are tethered to the cloud 24/7 with a bio-cyber interface. And they were chipped by the pharmaceutical industry with the life science partners. Life sciences and Big Pharma chipped 2.6 million clueless Americans who are in the military. And the military really wants one characteristic from their soldiers. They're looking for golden retrievers. They want intelligent, friendly, loyal dogs known for their obedience and their trainability and their playfulness. These dogs are eager to please. They are eager to please. They'll perform service work, agility work, and they respond to positive reinforcement training. They are obedient, they are playful, and they are even-tempered. And most importantly, they are obedient, which is another name for trustworthy. You're trustworthy if you're obedient. If I tell you to go kill a child and you do it, I know you're a trustworthy soldier. You're trustworthy. In other words, you'll follow an unethical order. You will not question your higher authority. And that's what the military wants, which is why the military is going to the AI. Going to the AI means going to the robots. Robots? Because robots do not question commands and directives. They just execute per their algorithms. All right. Then if you branch out contractors beyond Lockheed and Raytheon and Bell Nokia Labs, Pratt and Whitney and Boeing, you'll get into private banking because you see what makes all of these employees report to work is a paycheck. So whether they are 2.6 million military active duty and reservists, they're going to need a paycheck. And so too does people like Facebook and Control Labs to build out the metaverse and Meta, which is a trace, track, and targeting social media system. Social media is social surveillance. social media is social surveillance. Everyone who works in social media, including myself, is participating in a social surveillance honeypot operation, putting people's attention into various dossiers of what they are interested in, conspiracy theories or domestic terrorism or non-compliance or COVID believers or COVID dissenters or Richard Gage supporters or Richard Gage string him up by his thumbs like I am, Richard Gage, the leader of the fake architects and engineers for truth, because it was never about truth. It was about pacification and control, wasting your time, having you mail money in with your checks, getting your mailing address pinned down. Richard Gage, the bald-headed resistance movement, is always led by the enemy. In this case, it's Department of Energy, Department of Defense, and NATO forces leads 9/11 truther movement. Don't be upset. They lead every movement. Sandy Hook, Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, Jesse the steroid body Ventura, they all are owned and controlled by NATO, who's owned and controlled by Swiss Bank Authority. All right, but you expand it out to Kleiner Perkins and Sequoia Capital and KKR and Excel KKR and Jim Breyer Capital, Bane Capital, Boston Consulting, McKinsey Consulting. If you expand it even further to Harvard University, MIT, Princeton, Yale, Stanford, University of California, all 9 campuses. If you extend it further to Tulane University in New Orleans and all community colleges throughout the world, you will have military indoctrination programs found in every single indoctrination center, which you think are called colleges and universities. Now you're ballooning the 2.6 million military people, and you're turning it into more like 30 to 40 to 50 million Americans, which is getting to be 10 to 15% of our total population is dedicated full time to the military. And that's probably underestimating it. Then if you look at the amount of money that is pumped into the military, which is an above average amount, they don't pump that much into round table pizza and Subway sandwiches. They let that be trickle down economics, right? But the point is that the military economy as a percentage of Europe and America is a preposterously absurd high level. I would suggest to you it's about half of our economy is dedicated to building out a prison planet, which in Vietnam, we called it Agroville. Then we called it Strategic Hamlet Program. In California today, in 2026, we call it California Forever City. We call it Donald Trump Freedom Cities. We call them Liberty Cities. Some people call them Smart Cities. In LA, they have Smart LA 2028. That's real ID verification to get on a bus, to go into a liquor store, to get groceries, get cigarettes, get a bag of potato chips. Going to need a real ID, biometrics, palm print, eyeball recognition, authentication. You must be authenticated. Okay. In Europe and Geneva, they call them C40 compliant cities. In other words, climate hoax agenda compliant cities. Our weather and our climate is tampered by the military, by NATO forces, by these gentlemen standing behind me. The plane, the helicopter that they got off of over here, that probably carries smart dust, which creates weather warfare, temperature modification, wind, and excitement of particulates in the sky using micro nano biosensors and sunlight and EMF, electronic magnetic frequency, and sound. Those helicopters are very noisy. That's sonic energy. Jets, helicopters can stimulate the particulates in the sky, which is why they fly mostly at lower elevations. And also, of course, light, which can be sunlight or light emitting diode streetlights, headlights, or ray guns. laser lights. Those are all NATO weapon systems to dominate the land, the air, the breathable air, the sea, the ocean, the lakes, the streams, the canals, the water reservoirs, to hog our energy system, oil production. 50% of all the oil in the world is dedicated to NATO forces. So in other words, if you just canceled the military, you'd eliminate the energy crisis. There would be no such thing. The military is busy with covert means. They want to have Agroville, Strategic Hamlet, California Forever. That means a secured perimeter. That means electronic corridors. And by the way, you don't need flock cameras. You do not need flock cameras. They've already fully deployed a system of smart dust and COVID vaccines and vaccinated farm animals and toxic water and duck blinds that every single human being on the planet is already chipped. They've chipped everyone in various ways. Obviously, if you have a bird flu vaccination or a monkeypox, you're at a higher level of authentication. You have a higher status within the obelisk chain of command because you are tethered to the cloud 24/7. But every living creature is tethered to the cloud. Every living creature is a node on the network and appears on a radar screen with a 24-year-old keyboard commando sitting in a fusion center mobile trailer. You know, when you build a wall, it's to keep the prisoners in, not to keep the immigrants out. Donald Trump building a wall wasn't about keeping Mexicans out. It was about keeping Americans in who could flee to Mexico and live large when the inflation destroys America, which it's already doing. All right. So essentially, what these clueless, profane, vaccinated soldier, NATO soldiers behind me are doing, they're building out your jail, a penitentiary, the stockade. They're putting us in the brig. That's what the jail on a pirate ship is, the brig. They're building out an electric corridor, which involves, of course, the CubeSats and the helicopters, drones, and smart dust, smart meters, and ring cameras. And again, flock cameras are just another component of it, but the whole system operates just fine, minus the flock cameras. If you're talking about flock cameras, then you're not talking about smart dust, and smart dust is more ubiquitous and inescapable, whereas flock cameras can be disabled. So flock cameras are not nearly as dangerous as smart dust, which cannot be disabled. Smart dust is 1,000 times more dangerous than a flock camera. So you really should talk about neurodust, smart dust, dust networks, MIMS and MIMOS, MOSA and SOSA, messagens, and stop talking about flock cameras and data centers, because you don't need any more data centers either. We have plenty of data centers already. All right. So we have a gulag or a stalag, a Bastille that's called your town. And your city council, they're just basically representatives of the prisoners. And they're playing the cello and the violins whilst the Titanic sinks to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. You're in the slammer, you're in the hoosegow, and no one, least of all your mayor, is going to tell you that you're in a prison. If you live in Manhattan, the mayor of New York is not going to tell you you're in a gulag, even though the people of New York know that when they walk around. They see all the boarded up buildings. They see all the small family businesses that have fled. They see the homeless people living in the alleyways. They know they're in an open air prison. They know that they're in a FEMA camp. They know they're in a re-education camp. They know they're in a labor camp. They're working hard for no money. They're a victim of human harvesting. They're subjected to a prisoner dilemma. Do I stay or do I go? If I stay, the electronic system could harvest me like a dairy cow, or it could put me down with a manic episode, like they did with Aaron Valente. Hey, they could even harvest your organs. Right. They could do that at a FEMA camp. Yes, they could. Yes, they could. Or they could put you on a barge, which is called a prisoner ship. They call it the Hulk. Do you know that the city of New York's jails are so full that they're using barges to warehouse human beings on floating flotilla prison ships known as Hulks? I'm not kidding. In the military, they call it disciplinary barracks, or they call it the Bastille. Okay. They even have an acronym, USDB. Stands for United States Disciplinary Barracks. You know, like Leavenworth, Fort Leavenworth, or every military base from Nellis to Beale to Vandenberg Space Force Base. They can put up detention FEMA camps overnight. You can call them a Trump Freedom City, call them a Kamala Harris Liberty City. I don't care. Bottom line is, it's still a gulag, it's still a stalag, it's still a prison, it's still a jail, still a stockade, it's still a penitentiary. And when the media refers to going to the AI, they're saying to build a strategic hamlet. They're saying that they want you in a gulag. They're building a smart city. Smart city is a prison. That's what a smart city is. A C40 compliant, climate action compliant city is a prison. If you're a member of the military establishment, you're part of the prison guards. They have nicknames for you: prison guards, military, proud Marines. They call them Joes, snake eaters, shellbacks, angels, barrack rats, surveillance bots, bang bang, 11 bang bang, AAV, amphibious assault vehicles run by remote controlled, ACU, Army combat uniforms. They call you gallery or galley. They call you any mouse, a box for sailors who anonymously submit their comments or complaints. They call you officer of the deck or officer of the watch. Remember All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix? It was a song. It was about military surveillance. All Along the Watchtower is to secure the perimeter. This is for career military people. They're Joes, they're snake eaters, they're shellbacks, and they are most likely definitely not to be trusted. You can't trust a career military person, and you can't trust a career military contractor person. Someone who works at Northrop or Lockheed or TRW, they have high security clearances and are untrustworthy. They are the bane of our existence. They are the bane of society. You can't have a civilized society that's run by prison guards who are referred to as snake eaters, shellbacks, angels, barracks rats, Joe, hey Joe, right? That's the prisoner. And their economic effect, I'm going to give you a video of San Diego where they're saying that the Navy and the Marines provide 25% of the economy in San Diego County. I'm here to tell you it's more like 50% or more in a place like San Diego. All right, because you have all the contractors on top of all the sailors and Marines and Camp Pendleton and the Navy bases and Coronado Island and the Navy SEALs and Jesse Ventura and the Mongols Motorcycle Group. The Mongols Motorcycle Group is a military economic component of San Diego County also. Nobody messes with the Mongols. Are you crazy, Jesse Ventura? You should have come up to Oakland, California. I could have introduced you to a real man, Sonny Barger. He's much shorter than you, but I'll bet he could put you right in the drink, Daddy-O. You're a Navy SEAL, and you'd be floundering around in the Alameda Estuary looking for a rescue, crying for your mommy, sissy boy, Jesse, the steroid body Ventura. Those steroids aren't going to help you breathe underwater, Jesse. Blood doping might help, but I don't know that you do any blood doping. Do you, Jesse? Seems like Prozac and vodka is more of your recipe to be a gubernator of Minnesota. All right. Home to Stupider Peters, born on April Fool's Day, 1980. Stupider Peter with his tattooed sleeved arms of Screen Actors Guild rapper Stu Peters, the fake truther from Minnesota. All right, that's my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Do look at the video here around the military's economic effect on the San Diego economy down below. Do like and share my videos. I am heavily shadow banned. Take care now, and we'll talk soon. Yes, we will. And what else can I say? Except so long.